You are listening to KC Sports Network, the #1 podcast network for today's Kansas City sports fans. With former players from your favorite teams, informed perspectives, and former insiders, this is the place for you. KC Sports Network is proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
All right, in light of starting this 3-Mod podcast the way that we typically would start a podcast, Derek Young with me, Cole Manbeck with me. I have a question for you boys. Where is that big fat L from Saturday heading? You guys know where that big fat L from Saturday is heading? It's going to Mizzou! Woo! Welcome into 3-Ma. I'm John Kurtz. As always, I've got Derek Young with me from K-State Online, Cole Manbeck, beat writer from the Manhattan Mercury. We saw a fun game on Saturday, boys. Huh? How about that? 40-6 is really what we should recognize the score as, even though I realize it's technically 40-12. But the timeout by Eli Drinkwitz there at the end to preserve whatever pride, I suppose, was left at that point in the game to make it 40-12. Fun one. K-State whitewashes Mizzou, and the Wildcats are now 2-0 heading into a matchup against Tulane. We're going to recap it all, not just what happened on the field, but what potential recruiting impact this has, because there were a lot of very good prospects from around the Kansas City metro area in attendance for that game. We also had the Josh Manning saga still on the back burner. Avery Johnson was trying to do some nice recruiting for K-State, and he, by the way, was in attendance. Plus, hey, John Randall actually made it there to the game. So, lot to talk about, lot to break down. On a rainy day where there was a weather delay, K-State fought through it, no problem. Even after about an hour delay on a 3rd and 14 play, K-State had no problem getting a stop and then a punt return for a touchdown that at that point made it 20-3. And basically from that point on, it was all K-State, and they were running and hiding from the Tigers. I'll open it up with this, DY. Clearly, this was a very satisfying win for everybody across the board. And look, obviously, I opened it with a little cheap shot at Eli Drinkwitz, which I feel like is pretty well deserved here at this point, brings it on himself. But it was not just me. I mean, it was the athletic department, which bought a billboard in downtown Kansas City that said deuces with Deuce Vaughn throwing up the deuces. Taylor Bratt was getting in on the action with a tweet that was in the same vein as the one that Eli Drinkwitz put out there when Josh Manning committed about the love being real. I mean, we saw a lot of this. This clearly was there was something personal to this win for everybody on K-State's side.
Yeah, I think it's just the brashness of Eli Drinkwitz that kind of, probably motivates this type of behavior, because it's not something that we typically see from Kansas State, especially the billboard thing. That couldn't be far from the, what we're accustomed to seeing from the Wildcats, especially as an athletic department. I mean, that's probably something that, Gene Taylor says, yep, sounds good, not really in his wheelhouse to do. So that took me by surprise, and even shining the attention on it. All the tweets, the kind of the shade towards Mizzou. This one was personal for the Wildcats, and they took a lot of pleasure in beating them. I'm sure the locker room was quite the scene as well. And the one thing you didn't allude to, head coach Chris Kleiman wanted nothing to do with Drinkwitz at midfield.
How about that handshake, man? Ice cold.
It looked like Drinkwitz was going to, was expecting to exchange pleasantries. Kleiman basically shook his hand and says, I'm not going to talk to you. So, I think they took it personal, and I think they certainly basked in it. Hopefully it was just a 24-hour kind of thing, because that line from Tulane's already walking itself down the park a little bit. But, they enjoyed it.
Well, DY, Chris Kleiman's just getting revenge for Gary Pinkel, the Bill Snyder mid-game handshake when he walked away from him and didn't say anything back several years ago. So, no, I think it was definitely personal. The Josh Manning recruitment had a lot to do with that, and the handshake, I'm sure. And then also probably the way the game ended with Eli Drinkwitz calling a timeout. I mean, look, it's fine if you're an FCS team and you're trying to get a touchdown, for the morale of your team and an atmosphere like that to get a touchdown on the board, calling a timeout. But when you're a team from a Power 5 league, an SEC team, it's kind of embarrassing.
Not just any Power 5 league, Cole. This is the SEC.
Yeah, it's kind of to me, it's kind of embarrassing. K-State's got their backups in the game, and to call that timeout to get
struggled to get that in too.
Yeah, I mean, can we talk about that? First of all, shout out to the backups and the goal line stands. I mean, they did it against
Missouri need.
Yeah, South Dakota. They hold them at the goal line, 1st and goal from inside the 5. They hold them with K-State had a lot of 2nd and 3rd string in, and then they do it again essentially, and then it's really a roughing the passer ticky-tack call that ends up getting them an opportunity to punch it in. But, I mean, yeah, it was a personal game for K-State. I mean, John, look, I tweeted out the love is real with like 10 minutes left in the game. And, I thought of that. I was waiting for my opportunity. Didn't want to do it too early. And obviously the coaches did that afterwards. Taylor did it. And then I saw Josh Buford also did it as well on the coaching staff. So, it felt good, I'm sure, for Kansas State to dominate in the way they did. I didn't see it being a blowout like that, especially with the way the game started. I mean, Missouri went right down the field, and but then Kansas State's defense from then on out just dominated.
Minus the familial connection, that last sequence with Missouri trying to score a touchdown, even though it took a lot of, and actually that kind of compares well too. It took a lot of plays to do so. A little bit of Les Miles in 2019 energy, right? Minus that it's his son trying to give him the touchdown, but they're doing everything he can to score in a game that's clearly not within reach, and calling timeouts. And it kind of reminded me of the Les Miles things minus the familial connection.
Well, Les Miles was certainly a fraud. It would seem that Eli Drinkwitz is heading down that road as well rapidly. The other part of it too, Cole, I mean, they wanted to shorten up halftime, right? After an hour weather delay, and Eli Drinkwitz put the kibosh on that. So, I mean, it's like he just he did one thing after another, I think, that probably led to that icy handshake.
I understood that thing, though.
I didn't. I just didn't see it. It didn't benefit them when they had the hour delay, and they came out with the QB draw and then punted, and K-State housed the punt return right after that. I don't know. K-State suggested to shorten the halftime in that game because just had an hour delay, and Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz said no. They wanted the full 20 minutes. So that didn't do them a lot of good.
Yeah, a very, very minor thing, but it's like I was rewatching the broadcast because I was at a wedding as all this was happening. So I watched a lot of the game on my phone with no sound. And so I'm rewatching the broadcast, and I heard them bring that up where they're like speculating about kind of who makes that decision, or like, I guess we're doing a full halftime. And it's like the way it comes out, it's like, well, K-State's the home team. Can't they do something about that? I mean, that was the part that was frustrating to me. And then I saw some people asking on Twitter afterwards about it too. And I wanted to just be like, well, talk to the dork on the other sideline, man. That ain't us. That ain't us. So I digress. That was very fun. My question now, as we turn from the fun of just romping Mizzou, is, I mean, how much did we really learn about K-State in that game? I know the defense has been very, very good through 2 weeks. And I'm not, you can nitpick. Mizzou they got burdened open down the field a couple of times and missed them on plays that at least one of which should have been a touchdown. But the defense has been very, very good. The offense barely hits 100 yards passing, definitely left something to be desired. Mizzou looked awful. They looked terrible. So how much do we really truly know about K-State coming out of that game when it's a weird weather game? And again, you get up and you get a chokehold on them. So it's hard to know what to make of the offense, I think, because situationally it was more just like, hey, as long as Missouri literally threw 4 straight interceptions. So it was like, as long as you just run the ball 3 times and just give it back to them, you're going to get it back and you're going to win the game because you already had a multi-score lead at that point. So that's kind of the question that I have coming out of this, is how much did we really learn about K-State here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. I said all last week, this is where we'll learn a lot about K-State. I don't know if we learned anything. I did have a piece that called 5 things we learned, so that kind of with that.
You take the next 10 minutes, DY. It's all on you.
Yeah, well, I'll say one of them is, I think we know that, when during the offseason, even Chris Kleiman said this, and we had been saying it for months, the safety position was a question mark on the team. I think we've discovered it's not a question mark. Kobe Savage is really good. Josh Hayes, after he got knocked off the rust, really good football player too. They play fast. So I don't think safety is a question mark. I think we've learned that. I think we've learned that Austin Moore is a really good linebacker, at least serviceable. Or, they haven't downgraded from Cody Fletcher. Let's put it that way. I don't see it that way. So they haven't taken a step back at linebacker. They've probably taken a step forward at defensive end. You have Felix Anudike-Uzomah, of course, but Jalen Pickle's still there. Brendan Mott looks really good. Nate Matlack hasn't really splashed yet, so we're kind of waiting for that. It's not that he's not playing good, that those opportunities just haven't arisen. Robert Hint probably played the best game of his career on Saturday against Missouri. So individually, I think we're learning about players. As a team, I'll pump the brakes there. I'm not sure how much we're still leaking a little bit Kansas State's still leaking a little bit in the pass defense at times, like you said, with Luther Burden, a couple of Mizzou drops, which is probably because of the weather conditions. If anything, there were some drops and windows last week against South Dakota where they benefited from as well. So they still have to tidy some things up, with the pass defense, although, you're not going to take away everything. So I understand some of that might be designed that a certain play is open to. Offensively, I don't know that we're really learning anything. We already know deuce is deuce. The pass protection scared me for about a quarter, I would say. I thought they got pushed around a little bit in that, but they still ran block well and really got downhill. Passing game-wise, I don't think we've learned anything bad or good. It's almost still like the South Dakota post-game. Yeah. I still have those feelings. And because it wasn't great, but guess what? I mean, I underestimated it, but I let the press box just to walk to Veneer. So I'm outside for maybe 2 or 3 minutes. It was miserable. That's hard to throw the ball in that weather. That's why Missouri threw 4 straight interceptions.
Way to brag that you were in the press box dry, DY. My shoes are still soaking wet. I'm going to have to put them out in the sun for a week, I think, to get those things dried. I think you come away, the offense looked really good the first 2 drives, kind of similar to the South Dakota game, right? And they come out, they converted a couple 3rd down and longs, a nice play by Adrian to get the ball out to Malik Knowles for a 15-plus yard gain, and they score touchdowns on their first 2 drives. John, you mentioned the 4 straight interceptions. I think what was really kind of disheartening from the performance, and really the only negative thing I have, is then K-State on those first 3 interceptions, they only capitalized on 6 points. They kicked a field goal, missed a field goal, kicked another field goal. And all 3 of those drives started inside the Missouri 37-yard line and within. So, K-State really needed to punch in at least 1 or 2 touchdowns in that situation. And they kept shooting themselves in the foot. I mean, there were penalties. There was a false start. There was a block in the back. There were some mistakes on that end. In fact, the first 2 drives, 14 points, just to give you guys some numbers, 124 yards on those first 2 drives, averaging 6 yards per play. The next 7 drives, K-State only created 6 points and had 3 first downs, 68 yards on 30 plays, 2.3 yards per play on those 7 drives. So, and then that
was when it was the driest.
Yeah, it was. Look, that's the thing. So people also are going to look at Adrian Martinez's stat line, right, and see, 9 of 20, 101 yards. It's pretty meh. The weather, first of all, you can't really take a lot. It was pouring rain for much of the time he was playing. And then also the Deuce Vaughn 30-plus yard throw on the wheel route that they called offensive pass interference on Cade Warner. That was a beautiful throw. Yeah, I mean, he hit him right in stride. He hit Malik Knowles right in the hand on a post pattern over the middle that should have went for 15-plus yards. Malik dropped it. Phillip Brooks dropped a pass about 15 yards downfield. So there were some drops. And again, I mean, it's a wet football, so it's understandable that there are going to be a few drops here and there. But Adrian Martinez's stat line would have looked a lot better. I thought, no turnovers again. 2 games into the season now. He maneuvered the pocket well. You mentioned DY, the pressure. They got pressure on him a few times, but he moved around in the pocket and avoided sacks. K-State didn't allow a sack in that game. What did we say was the key to the game, the matchup? Missouri's defensive ends against K-State's offensive tackles. K-State doesn't give up a sack. How about this? Missouri only had 1 tackle for loss in the game. That's pretty crazy. You think about K-State's defense, they had 10 tackles for loss. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some things to be worked on the offensive side of the football. Deuce was terrific again, busted some runs late that really got his numbers up. But I wouldn't take too much away from the passing game. I thought Adrian Martinez made some nice plays. I liked a couple of the design plays that they ran, the kind of the pop pass to Phillip Brooks, which was unique because that's usually to a tight end. And then they rolled him to the left on a play later in the game and then threw back across the field to Phillip Brooks that I thought was a really nice play design and maybe could have been a touchdown if it wasn't for the rain. So, yeah, I think the offense is okay. They're just going to continue to get better.
Yeah, when it was the driest, and I know that sounds like an excuse, but it was pretty miserable out there. There was some wind involved too. But Adrian Martinez threw for 54 yards in that first scoring drive. That was more yards than he had the entire previous game. So they were off to a hot start before they adapted to the weather. You have to think about it that way too. They went into a shell there at some point. And look, they probably feel very fortunate and are probably pretty excited that they have a chance to get to the Oklahoma game in week 4 without showing hardly anything on the offensive side of the ball.
Nothing. I mean, yeah, see, that's the thing. And I mean, Tucker, I'm sorry. I hate to keep bringing this all back to Mizzou, but I mean, like Mizzou played the same role as South Dakota here. I mean, you jumped out pretty early, and after the punt return touchdown, when it's 20-3, they really didn't have to do much. And I think that's what we're really learning here. Like there are no this coaching staff does not care about style points. Colin Klein clearly does not care about style points. They're just about winning the game and doing what the odds say, like, will win you the game. Like, you get up big, you know how good this defense is, you know how incompetent the Missouri offense is, then just kind of turtle up and make sure that you get to Tulane without having done too much. And I think, again, when you talk about, hey, getting Adrian Martinez's confidence rolling, I would love to have seen a 250-yard passing day or whatever. But it was not in the cards with the weather, certainly. And you saw the drops that were happening from the receivers. There's just a lot that I think go into the calculus of what they were doing on offense. So, yes, at the time, was I extremely frustrated that they weren't punching in the turnovers for touchdowns and capitalizing all that? Yes, no doubt. But I think there is an element of the elements and receivers dropping balls and not wanting to get Adrian Martinez turning the football over and all these things that kind of led to how that went. Like, I was pushing back on some people on Twitter who were, I mean, of course, it's a fan base. It's how they work, right? But already you have fans like, this Colin Klein, the play calling, and I don't know. And I was like, look, guys, let's just take a step back here and look at the situation with the defense rolling, Mizzou stumbling all over themselves, just puking every time they have the football, the rain and the drops. They're not going to try and do anything too exotic here on offense. So, and they just wrote it out and won the game 40-6/12. So I don't know what else you really want from them right now. Well, Oklahoma, I know we just said it about last week going into Mizzou, but Oklahoma is probably where we will really start to, I hate to keep saying this, but find something out about the offense.
Probably. And I will say, I don't think it can be overstated enough. How about this? Or stated enough. Adrian Martinez has not turned the ball over through the first two games. With his past and what the questions were the entire offseason, and everyone's like skepticism about him has been the turnovers, right? In the critical mistakes. Look, that was the perfect environment and atmosphere for to turn it over and vomit all over yourself 5 times in a game. Missouri did, right? Missouri did that. They threw 4 interceptions in 10 offensive plays. 4 interceptions in 10 offensive plays. Adrian Martinez didn't do that. And he's the one known for that, right? I think that can't be stated enough.
Yeah, I agree, DY. And I just want to give you guys some numbers on the defense because I think it's warranted to talk a little bit about the job that Joe Klanderman has done since he took over as the defensive coordinator last year. You know, we talked last season, they averaged 1.91 points per drive allowed, which was the best mark by a K-State defense since 2013 in Joe Klanderman's first season. If you look over the last 8.5 games, dating back to the second half of the Texas Tech game last year, so that's 34 quarters of football, K-State's defense is allowing 1.07 points per drive, 85 points on 79 drives. That excludes garbage time, which by definition, up 22 points in the fourth quarter, et cetera. Takes out some of those garbage touchdowns like LSU had on the last play of the game, that Missouri had on the last play of the game. It excludes those. But that's incredible because here's the thing. Clemson last year ranked number 2 in the country in points per drive allowed with 1.14. K-State over the last 8.5 games has allowed 1.07, which would be the number 2 mark in the country, only behind the Georgia defense last season. So it's really been incredible what they've done on the defensive side of the football during that time. Think about this, guys. They've only allowed 8 touchdowns, 8.5 games, 8 touchdowns scored in non-garbage time. So they're playing really well. Their havoc rate on Saturday against Missouri was 24% on the season, 29% havoc rate, which is insane. They've played 104 snaps on the defensive side of the football. They've created havoc on 30 plays. I mean, it's truly nuts what they're doing on that side of the ball. They've got 10 tackles for loss in each of the first 2 games, so 20 TFLs so far in the year, 5 interceptions. Over the last 8+ games, K-State's +10 in turnover margin. So they're taking care of the football. They're forcing teams into mistakes. And on Saturday against Missouri, 3.4 yards per play allowed. Again, the weather dictated some of this, but that was the lowest of the Eli Drinkowitz era, 25 games that Missouri had averaged on the offensive side of the football. And the 6 points, if you exclude that garbage time touchdown, the only time Missouri was held to 6 points or lower in the Drinkowitz era was against Georgia last year when they lost 43-6. The next lowest mark was 12. So it would have been, if you allow that touchdown and count it, look, K-State held them to the second fewest point total of the Drinkowitz era. So a really impressive defensive performance. I thought, DY, you named some names. I thought Josh Hayes, he misses that first tackle where Brady Cook eludes him, but the second play of the season for him, really. Some rust, took a bad angle. Then he makes 2 really nice tackles for loss, just flying into the backfield during the game. I thought Eli Huggins played fantastic at the nose tackle position.
Yeah, start too.
Yeah. Gosh, that screenplay that he read, I mean, he's such a good player. And then you mentioned Robert Hintz, really flashed on Saturday. 1.5 tackles for loss. Austin Moore.
Dude, really Austin Moore's a stud, man. That guy can play.
He is a really good player. So credit to him for becoming what he has. Definitely added some comfort at the linebacker position for Kansas State. And we know about some of the other guys like Kobe Savage. You mentioned him, DY. Sincere Mason, 2 interceptions now in 2 weeks.
You stole that one from Julius Prince.
He did. We talked about Julius Prince taking a step up in ball play, defending and getting the ball, and then that one gets stolen from him. Their defense is playing really good football right now, and they have so much depth. You just really like where this is headed.
What was the havoc rate on Saturday?
24%, 16 havoc plays on 66 plays.
And what is it for the year?
29%.
Okay, I just want to give perspective to those that might not know what that, and obviously it's just, pass breakups, tackles for loss, sacks, interceptions, turnovers, stuff like that. A good number is like 18 to 20%, just for perspective. They're almost at 30. They're almost at 30.
Being at 29, not bad. How about Brennan Mott too? I mean, DY, I know that's another guy that
he chased Burden down from behind.
Yeah, like that we were talking about after the game. Like both he and Austin Moore, I think, fit in that category of like, you hear about them at first and you're like, okay, we've heard about these guys before through Snyder 2.0 and then the beginning of Kleiman, and like, you write them off in a sense, just being like, okay, they can be a nice filler, solid player or whatever. Both of those guys look like they're beyond that. I mean, they look like they can legitimately play.
Brennan Mott was a Chris Kleiman recruit and a Courtney Messingham recruit from Iowa City, Iowa, former walk-on, now in scholarship, and Austin Moore, I think he might be a Kleiman recruit too. I'm not sure, but he from Lewisburg, Kansas.
Yep. I mean, look, Brennan Mott kind of looks like Ryan Mueller to me, another former walk-on. I mean, a heck of a find that Kansas State has. Him and you mentioned it more, former walk-ons. That's how you create depth. If you can land a couple guys like that really develop, and they have developed those guys, credit to the staff for that.
No doubt. Cole, I heard you complaining about the rain being a little too wet on Saturday. It could have helped if you wore that Charlie Hustle jacket that you have on right now. I mean, that Charlie Hustle jacket you have right now could have kept you a little bit more dry in the stadium. If anybody else was lucky enough to get their hands on the Charlie Hustle jacket, Charlie Hustle t-shirts may have gotten pretty wet at the game.
I did not want to get this beauty wet, John, so I wore a different K-State jacket, had a poncho on, still got soaked. I had my 5-year-old in a trash bag.
Well, you were too cheap to buy the purple poncho.
That nothing would fit him. They were huge. So I mean, I should have got him they were sold out at the game. I did not plan ahead. This is what happens when dad goes without mom to the game, and I didn't plan ahead and get something for him beforehand. So father of the year right there. I cut holes in a trash bag for him.
Is he sick yet?
No, he's still good. So I'm happy about that. We're 48 hours past almost, so I'm feeling optimistic that we dodged one.
You have any choice words for the visitors from Columbia on Saturday?
No, he didn't talk too much. Well, he did. Apparently, he said some things apparently that my friends heard around me, but nothing. I didn't hear it. Nothing bad. But yeah. So. It was a good time. It was a good time. So
well, make sure. I was going to say another thing you all could have used on Saturday to keep warm. During the delay, you're cold, you're raining. Just knock down some 360 vodka from Holiday Distillery. Knock down some Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon from Holiday Distillery as well. Make sure your insides are warm there while you're outside, maybe cold and wet. Just make sure and keep it away from the kid, Cole. But that'd be the one thing. So
that's
as long as you can
usually
do
at
that.
the front of the episode. But you were so excited to throw shade at Eli Drinkwitz that
you are 100% correct. I lost my composure a little bit. This is why I am behind a mic. I'm not actually playing the sport. Remember that. I'll try and remember that the next time I get mad at somebody for losing their composure on the field. Yes, I got a little too excited there at the beginning and forgot the reads. But you see how I worked that in. I waited until we had the mention of the rain, and I tied them both in, like just your 360 vodka at the tailgate, run back out there during the hour delay or whatever, because a lot of people did and didn't come back. So I'm sure there were a lot of people out there slamming 360 vodka and Ben Holiday bottled and bond bourbon to try and warm up.
You've done this before.
I have, yeah, a time or two. Okay, I hate to turn it to something negative here, but still got some problems in the kicking game. Special teams has done some really nice things with running back a punt return for a touchdown, obviously. Phillip Brooks, which to me felt like the backbreaker of the game for Mizzou at that point in time, right out of the delay. But Chris Tennant misses 2 more kicks. He just launched a rocket on the extra point that, went straight into the line, almost took off someone's head, I believe, and then missed another field goal. Now, did come back and make a few field goals, so 2 of 3 from field goal range on the day, but 4 missed kicks through 2 weeks of the season has me pretty leery about that, because we're about to enter territory where, the Big 12 so far to me has played out to be pretty wide open, and it feels like there's going to be a lot. There are no gimmies. Kansas is no longer a gimme. I still wouldn't consider West Virginia to be a gimme, and you got to go to West Virginia. Like the point being, you could be playing a lot of close games coming up the rest of the year, and I just don't love where this is at.
Yeah, that's fair. 4 missed kicks in 2 games is something to be leery of. I don't know that I would pull the plug yet, and I don't think they are. I'll take a sort of positive angle here. It takes a lot of gumption and mental strength for him to respond and still send some through the uprights at this point, because he's going through a lot of adversity. He's hearing it probably when he's on campus, in the locker room, on the field, when he's on the phone, with his family. He probably can't escape the conversation right now about him missing kicks. And it would be hard to make any kick at that point, because there's probably some doubt creeping in. So I will say, just for the fact that he's kind of hanging in there and kind of, weathering the storm the best he can and still making some, probably says a little bit about his mental fortitude.
Yeah. Well, credit to him for the 2 field goals he did make. He could not have hit them down the middle any more than he did. He split the uprights, and one of them came on the heels of another missed field goal, and then one on the heels of a missed extra point. He's now missed 3 extra points in his first 10 or 11 games in his career now. So it's definitely a concern. Hopefully you can get him right in this Tulane game before Big 12 play. It's kind of one of those dynamics where you don't want to be having to settle and kick a bunch of field goals, right? But you sure would like to see him get his confidence up and some consistency there. So it wouldn't hurt to have a couple of those opportunities against Tulane, and then just to make every extra point as well to get that confidence level up. So I still think he's going to be okay. We talked about he's a very talented kid. Like that he ended the game on made kicks. He made the last field goal and made a couple extra points to end the game. So hopefully his confidence is up and they can get him going against Tulane, and he kicks the ball well. What I will say, speaking of the kicking game, shout out to Ty Zentner. Had a heck of a game punting the football. Yeah. He's been really good so far this year. He's had a nice career, but he had 2 punts that pinned Missouri inside the 5. I think one went for 60+ yards. One of them, unfortunately, got pushed out for a 15-yard penalty. But yeah, some bombs that he delivered that Echo Boydo downed each time.
Yeah, I'm hanging in there for the time being on Tennant too. I still have some confidence. At some point he's going to break through and just be fine. He's that good of a kicker. And he's still showing some mental fortitude, like I said. It's interesting because if you look back on his career, I know we touched on this before, it's the short kicks, right? It's the extra points. It's the ones under 42, under 43 that he's struggling with. And I always thought it looked like he was, I think we discussed this, how I was trying to be a kicker coach, how he was almost like pulling the string a little bit and slowing his leg down to kind of put those shorter ones through. And maybe that was an adjustment because, like Kurtz said, he blasted that extra point because it seemed like he did not want to slow the leg down. He was trying to make an adjustment there, and he probably went too much the other way, obviously, by the result. But I think that's maybe a correction that they're trying to make too, is like just treat every kick the same. You don't need to, change your angles or your leg speed. Just kick the ball.
I can have some patience and like heat of the moment after the second missed kick on Saturday when it's like, all right, there's been 4 missed kicks here in 2 games. I was like, you're going to have to change something. I doubt that that's the way that it goes, especially after making the final 2 kicks there, as you guys mentioned. So, look, wish the best for him. Tennant's got a really high upside if he can get the accuracy problems figured out, obviously, with how big of a leg he has. But it is absolutely something to monitor, and it especially stands out when the rest of the special teams has been really good. I mean, they've done a lot of really good things with the rest of the special teams units.
And it would be great if he can get it sorted out, because with him, reason why it'd be great if it's him, with Tennant, it doesn't take too much to get in field goal range.
Yeah, you're right. Well, and even still now, I mean, that's the thing. He's been good on the longer stuff. So yeah, you get past the 50. I mean, just roll him out there and see what happens if you're in a situation like that. And to be fair, I mean, DY, I know we were talking about this before we went on the pod. Lots of college kicker situations happening right now. I mean, watch the end of the BYU Baylor game, and that's all you need to know about the state of college kickers right now. There were 3 shanked kicks that made a huge difference there in the game and swung things. So other places are dealing with this also, not just the Cats. I don't know if you guys noticed this, but I had a lead pipe lock of the week on our last pod, which was the under on 57 for K-State Mizzou. And despite K-State putting up a Forderberger and Eli Drinkwitz trying to score that touchdown there at the end of the game, we still, with ease, hit my lead pipe lock of the week. So
I went 2-0, and for the second straight week, it was a cringy cover. I got Tennessee in overtime.
Yeah. John, you're lucky that K-State couldn't capitalize on a couple of those turnovers you were harping on. Otherwise, they'd probably get 50 plus on you. And I lost. Iowa choked that game. I had Iowa at -3.5. And look, Iowa would have won easily if it wasn't for the controversial fumble call at the goal line that would have put them up 14-3 in the second half. But I digress. I will say it was setting up for a hysterical ending for Iowa State if what had transpired had actually occurred and Iowa made a 47-yard field goal to send it to overtime. Because if you guys didn't watch the game, Iowa State had the game won. They call an offsides on Iowa State after I think they had forced a turnover on downs, called them offsides, and Iowa State celebrating.
And
got an unsportsmanlike conduct. Yeah. So they got a 20 yards of penalty yards that set Iowa up at the 40 with 9 seconds left, ran about a 10-yard out route out of bounds. And the kicker, speaking of kickers, missed it by 10 yards to the left, just hooked it. I thought Iowa was known for good kickers. But that would have been just thinking about Iowa State fans and how they love to complain about officiating and boo, how much they would have been all over that unsportsmanlike conduct and offsides about how the refs are out to get them.
John, I'll set you up here because I'm a pro too. Did you put your money where your mouth is? And what did you use to do it?
No, I did not, because I'm just not. I'm very interested in the lines. I am very interested in following that and the movement and what it means for the games. I just the gambling part of it is not really my deal. But if it were, where I'd be, and I know where everybody else is. That's DraftKings, people. The wait is over. DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook app, is officially live in Kansas just in time for football season. That means betting legally on same-game parlays, spreads, money lines, and more anytime and anywhere across the Sunflower State. To celebrate, DraftKings is giving new Kansas customers a can't-miss offer. Bet just $5 on anything, and you get $200 in free bets instantly. Just $5 on anything, you get $200 instantly on DraftKings. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code KCSN to get $200 in free bets instantly, people, when you place a $5 bet on anything. That's code KCSN only at DraftKings Sportsbook, America's top-rated sportsbook. Gambling problem, getting help is your best bet. Call 800-522-4700. 21 plus, physically present in Kansas. Eligibility restrictions apply. Bonus issued as free bets. 1 early win token issued at opt-in. Moneyline bets only. Deposit and wagering restrictions apply. Eligibility and terms at DraftKings.com/Kansas on behalf of Boot Hill Resort and Casino. To put a bow on this and the win over Mizzou, the other element that was a play here was recruiting. There were a lot of prospects on down the line to 2024, 2025 from the Kansas City metro area that were on hand in the game. K-State obviously has gone head-to-head with Mizzou quite a bit. There is the lingering Josh Manning recruitment. Is he still open and listening to K-State? Probably helps that they just mollywomped Mizzou and made Mizzou's offense look gross. I don't know. I mean, not that either of those offenses were setting the world on fire, but I can't imagine that you'd want to go play in that offense after watching it out there on Saturday. And John Randall, who is still the highest uncommitted player in the state of Kansas, right? Number 3 player in the state of Kansas is not committed. K-State's been working on for a while, 4-star running back. He was actually in the house, made it to campus and to the game, and we saw videos of his dad dancing in the locker room afterwards. So it seemed like a lot of good vibes on the recruiting front. But Derek, this is your time to shine. What does that game mean recruiting-wise for K-State?
Typically, I don't put a whole lot of stock in one game. I've always been taught that people probably overdo it when it comes to that in terms of a reaction, but this is probably the one that'll move the needle the most this season for Kansas State, regardless of what happens the rest of the way, just because they know they're going to have to butter their bread locally. And they've always done it, but they're trying to pluck away the top tier of that talent now too. And they're competing and doing so on a more regular clip. And this just furthers that effort. If I had to say what spot when it comes to, the blue chip prospects, so to speak, that they just haven't necessarily registered the most with yet, it's in that Kansas City, Missouri area, KC Mo. And this one was a powerful win on that front because they were able to get all those players, at the top of the boards to Manhattan to see, hey, this is not what you perceive. This isn't the SEC in Missouri, but this is a full house, a loud house. It's packed. The environment's good, even with the weather being as crappy as it is. And then we just dog walked the team in your backyard that you probably grew up closest to or watching maybe perhaps a little bit more with ease, and we didn't even play our best football. I think this one moved the needle for those prospects in Kansas City, Missouri. Just a couple that come to mind. And I'm not saying they're going to land them. I think in many ways it's an uphill battle, but this furthers you along in that relationship development where in a year or two, maybe you're more competitive across the board. That's what we were saying in Kansas a few years ago. They weren't getting those kids now, but this will further your efforts a year or two from now. We're a year from 2 now. What's happening? They have a chance to land 7 of the top 11 players in the state of Kansas in what is a banner year for the Sunflower State when it comes to recruiting prospects. And I say 7 of the top 11 because if John Randall Jr. happens to go their way, and it really looks like it is headed in the right direction at this point, that would be 7 of the top 11 in the Sunflower State that'll commit to Kansas State. Keep in mind, like that's just, like a shot away from being 9 of the top 11. I mean, not to bring him up, but Dylan Edwards was once committed, and they were close on Joe Otting until Notre Dame offered. So that was nearly 9 out of 11. So they're doing a great job locally. They're just trying to extend that reach and that audience into Kansas City, Missouri, and this can only help that.
Shout out Notre Dame, DY. 0-3 to start the Marcus Freeman career.
Marcus Freeman, boy, bring him in. I would love to go play for the only guy 0-3 in Notre Dame history.
Yeah, I mean, lose to Marshall at home. Couldn't happen to it.
Who would ever have a program that would lose at home to Marshall? I mean, my God, could that ever possibly?
Well, at least they got their starting quarterback in the game, John. Kansas State did not, at least. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Sorry to bring that one up.
Why would you do that?
Starting quarterback now? Are they going to stick with Buckner?
I didn't actually see it, but someone told me they popped in. Of course, NBC had the Marshall K-State highlights ready to roll because it was the last time that they upset a top 10 team. So apparently that made it on the good old broadcast. Sorry, Jeff. I will forever have etched in my mind Darren Sproles trying to chase down that defensive tackle that intercepted an option pitch. Isn't that what happened? And Darren Sproles was chasing him down. Okay, Cole is giving me this look like he has no interest in talking about this at all.
That kind of reminded me of Dino Green's interception when you brought that up, though. He was literally just trying to bat the ball down the line of scrimmage, and he basically ate it with his face mask.
But yes, it was the option pitch from Jeff Schwen that I believe it was David Goddard who took it to the house. And unfortunately, David Goddard, I believe, passed away in a car accident a few years ago. So,
well, okay. All right. Well, a lot of reasons I guess we shouldn't be talking about that, huh? Josh Manning, DY. I mean, is there any hope there?
I think that's probably later on in the cycle kind of thing. He didn't visit, obviously. So I think that the door has always been left open, even when he committed to Missouri. I'll say that. And obviously with this occurring, I'm sure that door is not closing anytime soon.
Avery Johnson was doing his best to help out. You know, he took that tweet of the final score and just simply tagged Josh Manning just to make sure he saw it, and in case he happened to be busy on a Saturday not watching the game.
That was pretty well played. Josh Manning's girlfriend did visit the Kansas State over the weekend as well. She's a soccer recruit for Coach DeBini, so maybe that helps a little bit too. It's another layer to the recruitment. It'll be interesting. See how receiver recruiting continues to shake out. I will say Blue Valley wide receiver Andre Davis is having a hell of a start to his season.
All right, love that.
Big game this week. Blue Valley versus Blue Valley Northwest.
What about Jaden Doss? Doss committed to Nebraska.
That's the one Nebraska commit. Now, obviously, we haven't even touched on it, but Scott Frost was fired in Lincoln, obviously, over the weekend. The one Nebraska commit I would keep my eye on. We'll see what happens. I'm not saying anything is imminent whatsoever, but Jaden Doss, he's a receiver recruit from Raypec up in KC also. They had him on campus in Manhattan over the summer, so there's already a relationship there. So they'll probably take a peek, and I'm sure he's going to listen at some point when that time comes. So I think that's probably the one Nebraska commit on their list that I would keep in mind. There's a couple of offensive linemen that they have committed, but they're from Nebraska, so I'd imagine they'd wait it out at least for a while.
That will be very interesting to see what happens there. And this will probably be more of a discussion for the Tulane pod, but later on this week. Chris Kleiman's name has been brought up, as have basically half of, if not more than half of, the current and future Big 12 coaches mentioned by some in the running for the Nebraska job. We're talking about The Athletic, CBS Sports, ESPN. A lot of different, very intriguing names out there. Kleiman has gotten a little bit of run. I'm personally not very worried about that, but again, we can break that down more later on in the week. Any final thoughts? Anybody have anything else that they want to make sure unload the notebook here about Mizzou before we leave this game? I've got one thing. If you guys don't have anything,
go for it.
Well, I was just going to say, look out for our preview pod that drops every Thursday morning now, and find us on the new YouTube channel on KC Sports Network at KCSNU. If you like to watch us on YouTube, you can find us over there. Encourage everyone to subscribe. So, John, there's my subscribe, tell your friends segment.
Also, rate it. Give
right
us
up at our new home.
There you go. On 3, DY's going out on recruiting trips on Friday nights. He was at John Randall's game. I'll make the pitch for you. You had Flando out watching Jordan Allen, K-State commit. We'll
watch Andre Davis on Friday. KStateOnline.com. It's on the On3 network now. It's just $1 for the entire year still.
And you would have had me.
Flando was getting all the engagement on that video of
Jerome Tang
doing the Wabash,
doing the Wabash. That was over 200,000 views at one point.
Yeah, look, shout out to Jerome Tang too. He's just incredible at engaging with people, and he successfully killed the chant. So
he's the only one who can do it. I said it for a while. Yep.
Yeah, they did not. I didn't hear it at all. So we don't need to talk about it anymore. Hopefully,
just a point of pride to me, Cole, that we had not discussed that at all here on this.
Well, I just got to give a shout out to just. It shows how well he relates to young people to be able to be that successful.
And it wasn't just the one he did. They the entire game.
It didn't happen. Yeah, it stopped right after he jumped in the student section with him.
Yeah.
He also did a KSU Wildcats chant. He's learning all the traditions and leading them now.
The only thing I was going to ask DY, I was just on K-State Online right before this. And I saw that one of your 5 things we learned was that Mizzou players were talking a lot of smack.
Oh, yeah.
We got that out of the K-State locker room afterwards?
Yeah, we heard that from the players. I mean, guys like Eli Huggins and there's a couple other ones. They were just like perplexed. I mean, it was like 40-6, and then they started to talk more. And when it was 40-6, so they were just stunned by because they said it's a physical game. Football's intense. It's competitive. Yeah, there's going to be trash talk in every game. But I guess this one was just elevated, and usually when the score becomes incredibly one-sided, the chatter dissipates, and I don't think that was the case in this one.
Well, attitude reflects leadership, right? It starts from the top down. I mean, they take from their head coach, I guess. Although he was pretty very entertainingly quiet, somber.
He was somber. Yeah.
EY, speaking of Jerome Tang, any update on Michaela Rich, official visitor? See, I'm just asking you on the air because I haven't gone to On3 yet this morning to get my
I don't
picks.
know that they have it. We don't have an update with. He's one of the, and this is going to sound like an excuse. He's one of the recruits that's kind of hard to communicate with. So we have nothing on the record from Michaela Rich at this time. The expectation is still that he's going to visit Illinois, Chicago, which is kind of an outlier in his recruitment because Kansas State, Ole Miss, and Missouri were the first 3 visits, but we don't expect them to be a threat, and it'll come down to the 3 high major schools: Kansas State, Mizzou, Ole Miss. Still thinking commitment on his birthday, September 26th, and probably going to have a 2024 official visitor at the end of the month. I'm trying to think what game that was. I'm not sure, but Patrick Gongba, I think that's how you pronounce it. He's a 4-star big.
And another official visitor this weekend, Justin McBride, another 4-star.
Yes, yeah,
right. I mean,
McBride,
it's just a 4-star after 4-star, John. Just that just reigns 4 stars at Kansas State basketball now.
I love it. We can talk more about that. We'll see. If we have updates, we'll get to that. We'll get you with the breaking news pods if something big happens. If not, we'll talk to you on Thursday with the Tulane preview as K-State gets ready for a fairly tricky game ahead of Oklahoma, just in terms of making sure that you're focused. Everybody be locked in. So don't be looking ahead to Oklahoma, anybody, this week. It matters if you, the fan, and us, the podcasters, if we start looking ahead. We can't be doing that, all right? Focus on Tulane, and we will talk to you on Thursday. Shout out to Holiday Distillery, Charlie Hustle, DraftKings for supporting the pod as well, and we will talk to you soon. Thanks for listening to another 3 Month.